So one of the things I did is when I joined Willkie, we didn't have a graduate recruitment program at all. So what I did is I interviewed every single partner and associate in London as to what they were looking for in a trainee, what they think makes a good trainee, what makes Willkie stand out. And then we used the basis of those interviews to create a competency framework.
Welcome back, everyone, for our next episode of 20-Minute TC. So I'm very lucky to have Gemma Baker from Willkie Farr and Gallagher here with us today. I've known Gemma for a few years now, and I love Gemma's honesty and candidness about the process. She's also really helped me to understand more about what graduate recruitment really involves, which is exactly what we're going to dive into today. So Gemma, could we just start by having you introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name's Gemma Baker. I'm a Graduate Manager at Willkie, and I've been in graduate recruitment in one form or another for now 25 years.
Would you mind just talking through over the course of like a typical year? What's your like focus across different months?
Well, what I would say, because I do development as well, so I look after all of our trainees. So every day I'm looking at if any trainee has an issue or they want to talk about something or they want advice, my door is always open. And so that's a continuous theme throughout the year, which is heightened in, say, just before seat rotations every September and March, so for qualification, which we tend to do around May, June. But on top of that, then say from September to December is our big, what I'd call application season. So last year in 2024 in autumn, we ran over 50 events with different organisations. I organised up myself with Willkie, with our people here, with different universities. So that takes a huge amount of organisation. I then reviewed all of the applications. So we had 1,396 in the last recruitment cycle, which is still continuing. I then review all the video interviews myself. And so that kind of September to December season is extraordinarily busy. And now from January until March, I finished reviewing all the video interviews, and it's the third stage of our application process, which is our written exercise, which has now taken place. What's shortly to happen is the fourth stage, which is our interviews with partners, and I organise all of those interviews. And then it will be the VAC scheme themselves. So it's the organisation of that, getting to know the candidates on that and assessing them whilst they're on the scheme. So September to say April is very, very, very recruitment focused.
That's a lot for one person to manage. How do you manage all of it?
I have many, many cups of tea in the morning and many, many bags of Percy Pigs in the afternoon. I really enjoy the role. I really enjoy meeting candidates. I really enjoy working with organisations like yours, Jason. And so I genuinely think, unless you enjoy it, this would be, like any job actually, it would be a really difficult thing to have to get through with this high volume. But I really enjoy meeting candidates, all of the events we hold. And it's great to see them coming through the process. I really, really enjoy that aspect of it. But in terms of how I manage it, I'm extraordinarily organised. And I live and die by a spreadsheet.
Lovely, me too. Let's take then today. What does a typical, or like around this time of year, what is a typical day like for you at the moment?
Well, at the moment, I'm looking at seat rotations. So we have confirmed all of the next seats to our trainees, but I'm now looking at supervisors. I'm also looking at revamping our appraisal form. That's the trainee appraisals, which is to do in line with the new SQE guidance, because half of my trainees have done the LPC route and the other half have done the SQE route. I answer dozens of queries a day over email from candidates or people who are interested in applying and who've missed the deadline perhaps. And I'm also looking at getting our VAC scheme organised for April. So that is looking at potential supervisors who would like to supervise. That's really important, rather than just plonking a VAC scheme student with anyone. It's always got to be someone who really is invested in the VAC scheme process and wants to be a supervisor. That's really key. And then looking at how we amend our VAC scheme based on the feedback from previous year's candidates and also from supervisors themselves and the trainees. So at the moment, that's my focus. My part in reviewing applications has stopped, and the written exercises are now being marked by associates. And when those come back in, we'll sit down and review those together. And so at the moment, there's lots and lots of different aspects to the role.
And I guess, so you mentioned the different stages of the application process. Applications, video interviews, written exercises. What happens internally while obviously the candidate sees the exercise, but what is going on behind the scenes for you?
Well, the written exercise in particular, one of our associates wrote it. It took him over a month to write it because you have to make sure it's pitched at the right level, that it's doable, it's comprehensive, it's really comprehensive, and it hits all of the kind of markers that we want to hit. So behind the scenes, we're testing the exercise on trainees. We're then testing the marking. And there's a huge amount of processing, uploading, and then scheduling in candidates. It takes quite a long time to get to the point where we're able to release the exercise to candidates. It's weeks and weeks and weeks of work.
What's the hardest parts of the role then, and how do you manage it?
For me, I suppose it's a bit more emotional. Really, is when you meet a candidate perhaps at a law fair or an event, and you think, oh, they're really lovely and they seem engaged, and then they get through the application stage, and then they might have a video interview that doesn't quite meet the mark. And you've got to bear in mind that because I'm reviewing around 300 video interviews, there is a level of comparison that candidates don't have the luxury of seeing. And so what I find hardest is when you're at the point where you have to say no to somebody who you think on a personal level is a really lovely person. I actually find that quite difficult. So that's a bit more of an emotional response. And I'm aware that candidates are trying so hard and just want to be given the opportunity to showcase their potential. So I know I don't take rejections lightly. I know that it's very, very hard to receive. No, I find that difficult, I think.
What has helped with that, if anything at all? Do you do anything to kind of manage the stress of, someone's really good or you like them, you think they've got so much potential, and maybe they just don't necessarily show it at the video interview?
Of course, what I can only base on is what I see or what I read. So I can't assume someone's got potential just, oh, it's a feeling. It's got to be measured. And that's what makes a process fair and transparent. So what I do is I do offer feedback to a lot of people. As sometimes I have to say no, but that will just be purely for my own capacity. I have to go home at some point. Um, so I find giving feedback, and I always give honest and achievable and quite direct feedback. I think that's so. I think that's helpful. And what I try to do is be helpful. So it's not just no, go away. It's no, here's what you can do. And I run lots of application workshops, which I genuinely think are helpful. And they're all about refining applications. And it doesn't matter whether you're applying to Willkie or another firm. It's really about looking at your applications critically and realizing what you can do to get it to that next stage. Because generally it's obvious to me why an application isn't getting through, but that's because I read thousands upon thousands. And that's I'm trying to impart that knowledge to help people. And that I think mitigates what I said earlier.
Is there anything you've learned about delivering feedback in a way that students are more likely to action it?
I think be direct and honest. I mean, if you're delivering, I my one message when I do my applications workshop is don't be generic, right? So it would be, I would make a mockery of that advice if I were to give generic feedback. So I look at each person, what they've specifically done, and I tell them perhaps how to do that better or what's missing. Because often what's missing, and to me it might be obvious, but generally to candidates it isn't. I find being direct is the best approach. Sometimes that hasn't landed well and people have got quite angry, but that happens very, very rarely. And most candidates are incredibly receptive. And I hope use it as a stepping stone to, achieve their ambitions.
Now, we hear people love your events, both the ones you do at TCLA, but also the application workshops. Um, Do you set out to do anything in particular at those events, or is there a way you try to make the most of the time that you have?
No, I don't particularly have an agenda. We do events that are specifically for people to find out about Willkie by trainees, and particular practice area workshops and things like that. And I very much leave that up to the trainees and the associates to run those how they see fit, because that is their area of expertise. And I encourage everyone to just be themselves. Um, and I'm myself in all of my application workshops. So no, I don't think I have a particular strategy behind them, apart from this is what I feel that most people should be doing. And it does help and it does work.
And you mentioned when you can only see what's put in front of you, and so you have to go by like a sense of measurement. I guess it's always curious to me, how do you work out like an objective measure and then score people? What is that side like for you?
So that was really interesting, actually. So one of the things I did is when I joined Willkie, we didn't have a graduate recruitment program at all. So what I did is I interviewed every single partner and associate in London as to what they were looking for in a trainee, what they think makes a good trainee, what makes Willkie stand out. And then we used the basis of those interviews to create a competency framework. So this is a phrase you'll hear spoken about a lot as a competency framework. And that's basically a list of skills or competencies that we're looking for, perhaps at each application stage. I feel sometimes competency frameworks be rather complicated, needlessly. And so ours is quite simple. And I'm a great believer in the fact, and I believe a lot of skills are eminently teachable. And so really what we identified at the application stage, we're looking for really great written communication skills. And we're looking for an interest in the business of law, the business of our clients, an understanding of what solicitors actually do at a firm like this, and an interest in Willkie and what we do, how we do it, why that's important to you, the candidate. And that's really what we're looking for at that application stage. And then we have other competencies at different stages, but it's actually based on Willkie London and what we believe makes a successful solicitor here.
Is there anything in your assessment process that you do that maybe you've noticed not every firm does, and it's something that you either have or maybe don't have? I wonder if there's anything that comes to mind there.
Yes, I am very proud of the fact that I genuinely think this is a good process that is fair and transparent. So I review the application forms, myself, it's not sent to a committee, it's just me. And then it's the same with the video interviews. Now, the third stage, though, is a anonymously marked written exercise. So that's when we remove a candidate's name entirely, it's replaced with a number, and then it's marked. So you become Monday 1. That's what I called somebody this year, because I took the exercise on a Monday. And then the associates will mark that, and they will have no knowledge of your name, your university, nothing. And so it's just marked on that kind of the basis of your work and your work alone. And what could be fairer than that? We obviously make adjustments throughout the process. If anyone requests adjustment, it's just put in place. And then the fourth stage, which is the interview with the partners, is also CV blind. So the only thing the partners know about each candidate is their name. And then I will write if they haven't studied law in any capacity else. That will be the only other thing. And so they know that they don't have any kind of academic knowledge there. And then that partner and associate interview is based around motivational questions. So why, in various formats. And then a commercial case study, which isn't law-based, it is commercial. And then, but it's not expecting you to get an answer like this. It is about enabling any candidate to really showcase their lateral thinking, their ability to think on the spot, their natural intelligence. And again, we would make adjustments there as needed. And I think those last two stages are designed, they're uncomplicated. They don't favour somebody who's more suited to robust questioning, because our interviewers are friendly. So it's not in any way a confrontational interview. It is a nice chat. And I think that's brilliant. And then we have the VAC scheme. And on the VAC scheme, which also I'm very proud of, is from day one, the candidates will experience actual live client work. And we base our decisions on their work and their approach to work. We don't have any hidden assessments. We don't have an interview on the VAC scheme, etc., etc. It's based, again, on their performance during that 2 weeks, just as a trainee or any other employee would be assessed. So I like to think that's fair, and it takes into account many, many different things. And we've tried to, and we make it as transparent as possible, so it's exactly the same for everybody.
How closely do you work with other people at Willkie, whether it's like partners, associates, different teams? I'd love to know how does that side fit with the graduate recruitment?
Oh, I work with everybody. So I work with our L&D lead in London a lot, Kirsty. I work with our HR team. I speak to partners all the time, every day. I have two graduate recruitment partners who are fantastic. But the thing about trainee programs is that generally all the trainees, associates, and partners are so interested in it. So I'm constantly speaking to people. People are asking me questions and they want to get involved. So, and then of course there's all the support functions at Willkie that are absolutely vital to the smooth running of any process or VAC scheme in particular. And so things like facilities and our IT team, our wonderful reception team. So there isn't a single function in the London office that I don't speak to and liaise with regularly, which makes my role really, really interesting. It's never ever boring.
Is there something about your role or just graduate recruitment that you think maybe you notice candidates don't realize, but it would be useful for them to know?
I think it's managing expectations. I'm very, very clear as to when people will hear back from us. And I really do understand the feeling of waiting for something and wanting to get a decision as quickly as possible. But if I say, you'll hear from us within 15 working days, to be contacted on day 6 and saying, I haven't heard back from you, and that sounds minor, but if you multiply that email by 100, that genuinely leads to a delay because you're spending your time answering emails. And I answer every single email within 24 hours, I think. I try very hard. And I think just if you've got an email with all the information in it, look at it. And then if there is genuinely something that isn't clear, then ask. But if it is clear, just kind of stick to those parameters. And I would say also that most graduate recruiters will try to get back to people as soon as they can. People aren't waiting to send out outcomes. It's a busy role with many functions. And I know it can be frustrating to wait for ages, but I do get back to people really, really quickly. So I would say, just bear in mind, say at Willkie, the team is just me.
And you mentioned responding to emails in 24 hours. Is there any other principles or ways of working that you try to adopt to kind of just be really good at your job?
I really try to treat everyone. Well, I don't try. I do treat everyone exactly the same. I'm really strict with things like deadlines, because if you move the deadlines, then immediately your process isn't fair. It's you are bending the rules to somebody. You can't. So I would say that I'm quite rigid with things like deadlines, fairness, and treating absolutely every candidate, I think, with respect. I know it's a tough process, and I know people apply to many firms, and it can be so frustrating, and it's exhausting as well. I know that. So it's treating everybody with, I think, the same fairness and the same approach, and being respectful. I think that's really important.
How is graduate recruitment evolving? Is there anything you're seeing that's different compared to when you started?
Jason, I started 25 years ago. That the world has changed for the better, largely. Um, so I would say this, yeah, you couldn't compare today to 25 years ago. It was very, very, very different. And what I love about today is how invested our partners are in and making sure this is a fair system, that we're not targeting particular universities. We want to see candidates from a variety of universities and backgrounds. And I think that's incredibly important. And I love how much that has changed over the last 25 years. I think there's trends that come in that graduate recruitment are using. Certain psychometric testing, like 10 years ago, there was a couple of years where everyone was using gaming as a stage. And I tried to stay away from the trends, and I tried to keep things very, very simple. I sometimes think some trends are a bit patronising and a bit trying to be a bit too down with the kids, which I think is just hideous. So what I tend to do is keep it very simple and try and respond to people really quickly and make decisions quickly, which I think is important.
If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, say when you're starting out, so 25 years ago, what would you say?
I think this might come as a surprise to people because I think I come across as incredibly confident and self-assured, but mine would be to stand up for myself far more than I did. But it was a very, very different environment and climate. But I still wish I had. I wish I had said no to quite a few more people in terms of, you know, I think processes and things at firms. I think you realise looking back that, and I was very, very junior. I was very, very young. And so I think I should have thought, oh no, I don't know if that's right, and spoken up for myself a bit more. And every voice is valid, and people do listen. So I think I'd stand up for myself a bit more and be far more confident in who I am and my own abilities.
And last question. So people watching this range from, aspiring lawyers, maybe people interested in graduate recruitment, future trainees. What's one piece of advice from your experience that you would pass on to the audience?
I would say I don't think you can make 5 and 10-year plans. I think life evolves so rapidly in your 20s and 30s. And where you think you're going to be personally, financially, professionally, everything changes and it continues to change. Even in my 40s, my life has changed radically. And so I think the thing is to have an eye on where you want to be, but accept that life is just full of twists and turns, and to kind of go with that rather than be rigid and stick to this one single path. I'm sure you'd be able to speak to that, Jason.
Definitely. Yeah, I never would have expected where I am.
Exactly. But where I am and the changes, I'm really happy and I'm confident and I love my life professionally and personally. And so I think for me, it's to kind of go with those changes, say no to things you don't want to do, absolutely. But also there's some things you think, oh, I'm not sure whether I'd be good at that, but give it a go because you simply don't know where you'll end up and it could be all the better.
Gemma, thank you so much. It's been lovely to get to know you better on this podcast. And like I said, I always love working with you. So thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.